So you tell us whenever you think everybody's here. We will have Jen start.
I think we have everybody here.
All right.
Okay, so I don't really know what I'm doing, but the timing is good. So Backdrop 1.5 just came out on last Thursday on the 15th on schedule, which is great. So there's a couple of new things to show you. I guess what would be helpful to me is to figure out how much you guys have seen before. Like, obviously, Kathy, you've installed Backdrop a few times. Doug is very familiar with it. Is there anyone who hasn't seen it at all yet?
I haven't.
I have not either.
Okay. So maybe what I'll do then is do kind of a little bit of what we do in the standard Backdrop show and tell presentation, where I can kind of highlight some of the significant differences between Backdrop and Drupal. I'm assuming you guys are all very familiar with Drupal. And that might kind of help introduce you to the things that are most relevant. Okay, let me see if I can turn on the screen sharing here. Share screen. Okay, I'm not sure this is going to work because I don't think I can see you guys and share my screen at the same time. Let's see. Okay, does this look like a website? The local site?
Looking good. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So newest exciting thing about Backdrop is we got rid of Bartik as the default theme when you install it. It's still there, but like the appearance page, you can turn on Bartik if you really like Bartik. But we got in a new theme called Basis, which is a little bit more modern. It's going to be a little bit better for creating sub-themes. It has some different elements to it. But for the most part, I don't think people will generally ship sites using it, but it does have like some fancy fonts and a little bit more of the aesthetic that we're trying to go for in Backdrop, where things being kind of black and white and super clean. So that's the big thing. This theme also has a whole bunch of overriding of kind of the bad default CSS that Drupal had for things like status messages. So we did a bunch of cleanup on stuff initially, and then we did in Backdrop, and then we also added a bunch more cleanup of all of those things in Basis. So if you're a theme developer and you always have hated the way that like form elements looked or whatever, it should be an easier way for you to override them if you do a sub-theme with Basis. I haven't ever presented on Basis before because it's only been around for 5 days, so I don't really know what I'm supposed to show you, but there's that. Let's go to stuff I do know, shall we? Latest version of Bartik also came with 2 default pieces of, or latest version of Backdrop, 2 default pieces of content. So we put in a post and a page. The post here is, just how you are used to dealing with articles in Drupal. The post is the same thing. We just renamed it. We chose the terminology that WordPress was using. And when you edit it, it's exactly like Drupal with a couple of differences. The WYSIWYG editor is set up for you by default out of the box. This is using CK Editor. Latest version of Backdrop included the formats dropdown. This is also a little bit easier to configure than Drupal's text editor because it's so deeply integrated with this one editor. You only have to configure one thing. So like if you added a new button, it would also automatically add the HTML tag for the filters. It's all kind of the same system now. Let's see, what else is new? In Backdrop Core, so this is just Backdrop Core we're looking at, we have updated jQuery, jQuery UI. We've got widgets everywhere for like date pickers and stuff. We've included path auto and token module, so we have automatic aliasing set up. We have included redirect module, so there are redirects from old paths to new paths. And we've done kind of a user interface pass on most things in core to try and make them a little bit easier to use. We've done things like collapse the formatting options. Those are hidden. Yeah, I guess that's kind of it. We also added some additional settings per content type. So I'm going to show you a page next, and you'll notice that the things that appear are different on posts and pages. So your page. Page is kind of the same thing. Here's our default about page. And for example, under publishing options, there's only one checkbox for published here. There's not something for sticky or promoted like there was on the post. And that's because under content type settings, configure, there's now settings here for what you want like the default status to be, but also if you can change that. So like show the option to make it sticky or not, show it to make it promoted or not. So you don't have situations where you're giving your content to your editors and saying, just ignore those. They don't actually work on this content type. It gives you a little bit better control over the UI. We've also changed, yay. We've also changed the process of when you create a content type, you now are supposed to create all of the things associated with that content type on the same form here. So we have things like permissions on the content type creation form, so you don't have to create the content type and then forget, and then remember to go back to the permissions page somewhere else later. Same thing with your path auto patterns. You can set them up here. Yeah, so just kind of trying to make it a little bit more simple in terms of how you manage things. The content types. What else did I show you guys? So my favorite thing in all of Backdrops is the layouts module. This is basically a port of what was panels in Drupal land, but we redid the UI. So on the layouts page, by default, you can see there we come with 3. There's a single one column layout for the home page. We have the right sidebar layout that's used on every page on the site, and an administrative layout, which is the page we're on now, single one column layout there as well. And the layouts page has the same things you like about panels, that you can like drag and drop things from place to place. There are a couple of significant differences in the way the page is actually assembled between Drupal and Backdrop. The header, for example, that used to be relegated to the theme, right? And you would have settings in your theme for if you wanted your site name or your site slogan to show up. In Backdrop, these are block settings, so you edit the block and you can decide if you want your site name or site name or slogan to show up here. You can decide if you want like your user links to show up, or if you wanted to put a different menu into the heading section, you could choose to do that here as well. We included all the features from menu block module in core, so you can decide like how many levels deep you want your menu to be, and then if you choose something like 4, there might be, like you can just choose a starting depth. Maybe you have to change this. There we go, starting depth. So we've got menu block settings. This is also new. As of the latest version, we have the ability to have a responsive drop-down menu out of the box. So that was something that was hugely painful to set up in Drupal. It's also been hugely painful to set up in Backdrop until today, or until last Thursday. Now there's just an option here if you want to drop down menu. And all when you do install for the first time, the primary navigation has a responsive drop-down menu on it automatically. So hopefully no one will have to do anything unless they want it not to be a responsive drop-down menu. Let's see, what else? Layouts have this concept of context. I'm going to be getting into a rabbit hole here. We get 10 layouts in core. If you want layouts that aren't specific, like aren't compatible with the ones that are in here. Layouts are also a top level drop-in, like a module or a theme where you can just add on new ones. You can also add a set of layouts. There's a contrib project in Drupal called Radix Layouts that provides 33 of them. These 10 were pulled from that Radix Layouts project, but that project also exists for Backdrop. So if you wanted the other 23 of them, you could grab them that way too. My dog thinks it's really funny that I'm talking to the computer. She's going to talk to me back. So if you hear any weird barking or whining, it's my dog. Let's see, what else should I show off? Oh yeah, configuration management. That's one of my favorite things too. So in Backdrop, configuration management, everything that used to be a variable in Drupal is now in a configuration file. All of the configurations are exported to JSON and managed separately, so you don't need to use features module anymore. There's now a separate UI here for configuration management. So if you wanted to take a look at, let's take a look at, how about the homepage layout? Because we were just looking at that. We choose the homepage layout. It'll generate a JSON file that contains all of the settings about all of the stuff that's in that layout, and then any particular configurations, like here's the header block configuration. And all of this can be exported and managed in code. If you're comfortable like using Git, you can deploy changes with Git. But if not, you can also just deploy them using this UI. So like if you have a site on Pantheon where there's a dev site, a test site, and a live site, you can also just export from one site like this, and you go to the next site and you go to import and you just drop in the thing you just built. So there's a UI for managing those configuration changes, just as there is a code process for syncing them as well. So that's kind of cool. But I guess, I don't know if Features has that. I don't think Features has a UI for that. All it does is give you a UI for generating modules, but you couldn't like import one configuration of a content type or something. I don't know. What else do you guys want to see? It's basically just Drupal. It's newer.
About views, how to views type of.
Yeah, so this is views. It's exactly the same as it was in Drupal. You add a view in the same way. It's got the same little wizard, right? We did a little UX cleanup. So let's see here. Here's a view. We'll just do all test content. The only significant change we made to the views UI is that it's now responsive. So if you squish the page, it'll like become one column, but that's kind of it. Everything else is exactly as it was before.
Theming templates. Sorry.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Theming templates from views. Yes. Oh, that's the same.
This is the same. It'll generate like the output for your view template file. The only major difference in template files between Drupal and Backdrop is that we don't automatically expand classes into strings ahead of time, or arrays into strings. So like classes in Drupal was an array, and then when you would print it, it would like get flattened into a string beforehand. So in Backdrop, you actually have to call implode on your array. That's really the only difference in template files.
When did available updates settings become a thing?
When did what?
The settings tab on available updates.
So I think we've had that since Backdrop 1.2. So there's a module called Update Manager that was part of Drupal 7. And we have always had this module in Backdrop, but for a while we didn't actually have the server that it could talk to. So even if you turned it on and it said it was checking for available updates, it wasn't actually checking because we didn't have anywhere for it to check. But I think since Backdrop 1.2, I don't know, Jeff, if you know better than I do when that went in.
I was thinking specifically about the under reports, available updates, and settings.
Oh.
The day I saw that, it caught me off guard. I didn't know when it came in.
I don't know.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, I know we did change something in 1.5. I'm not sure if it was this. I know during the installer, there's a checkbox that asks you if you want to check for available updates. And it used to do something different than what it does now. Like now it actually does what it says it does, which is it'll like notify you when updates are available. Whereas I think before it used to like enable or disable the module, where now like the module is always enabled, but you can decide whether you want it to bother you about it or not. I don't know. There's some significant difference that I am not remembering right now. But that might have something to do with this settings page. Like it could be that, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how long this has been here. We can get blind and find out.
And is Drupal doing anything like this page? I think not.
We must have taken this from Drupal.
There are plenty of original things in Backdrop.
Yeah, I mean, maybe.
I thought this was one of them.
This is what it is. Okay, so this manually only setting, I think, is what that checkbox does during. Maybe this did go in 1.5. I don't know. I don't know everything. Apparently,
It's gotten so big.
there's so many people working on it. I can't keep track of it all.
Would you mind explaining the config settings, the staging and active settings and settings.php, and how people are leveraging that for workflows?
Sure. Sorry, I'm in the middle of porting a module here. Let's see what I can grab for you. Open. Oh, I know what I can do.
And while you find that, I'll let people know. The JSON files she was showing you that get generated when you're synchronizing configuration management, they can be stored in a publicly accessible or a writable directory like files, or if you're able to, they can be written to a Git repo controlled file structure that you can then do modification, or Git adds or Git commits to, and keep your flow going. And there it is, line 37 and 38.
Yeah, so there's a couple of changes in how setting up your Backdrop site would be compared to Drupal. We reverted back to the database connection string that was used in Drupal 6 as opposed to the one that's in Drupal 7, which is a super crazy complicated array. But if you need a super crazy complicated array, like you have a master slave database setup, you can use it. It'll still work. We just figured for the 99.99% of people who don't need that, we would go back to something that's a little easier to use. So that's in here. And then the active and staging things that Doug was asking me to explain, this is just the location where your configuration files are stored on disk. So in Drupal 8, your active configuration is actually stored and read out of the database. There are files that are synced with the database settings, but the database is what's actually used to check, is your module enabled? In Backdrop, those settings are only, there's no database in between. It's only read and written from disk. So if you were to open a file from this configuration directory and read it and change it and save it, it would change the way your site operates. There's nothing else in between. And so the active directory are the ones your site is actively reading and writing to all the time. And the staging directory is if you were to, for example, pull down a whole bunch of configuration files from a live site and you wanted to work on a local site, you'd throw those files into the staging directory, because then, let me see if I can actually do this for you. Okay, so I'm gonna go copy system core is where the site name is stored into the staging directory. Okay, so here's my system core style sheet. It contains just a whole bunch of the variables that are set by core itself. In here, there's something called your site name, and my site name is very uninterestingly currently set to Backdrop local. But I wanted to change this to Backdrop live demo. And then go to the configuration management user interface. There's an option here to, oh, I removed everything else. That's probably not good. Here, let's not delete my entire site. Make that change again. Site name. How come I can't type when people are watching?
The curse of the trainer.
Okay. So then it'll show you what's been changed, right? So I copied the entire contents of my active directory into my staging directory, and I changed one file. And it gives me this diff engine where I can take a look at what's changed. And this uses the same kind of syntax as GitHub if you're comparing a diff, where it'll say, hey, this line has changed. It used to be Backdrop local. It's now Backdrop live demo. It even highlights exactly what's changed in that line. And if I decide, yes, I do want to import this change, so I run import, and it'll copy all of the changes that are different from the staging directory to active. And then if I go to my homepage, it should show the new live demo site name.
Yeah.
So that step is important because there are configurations that do have database structure changes associated with them. For example, if you wanted to add or remove fields, there are field database tables that need to be generated or removed that go along with the configuration change. So it gives you that kind of stage in between state there where you can take a look at what those changes are so you don't accidentally delete fields maybe you didn't want deleted. And Backdrop is also pretty good about if you're about to do something really dangerous, it's going to make you go do it manually. It's like, you want to delete this content type, you have to go delete that content type on your site manually. Like, we're not going to let you just sync and accidentally blow stuff away. And part of that was because automatically blowing stuff away was hard. And so we're like, not only is it dangerous, but it's really hard. And if we punt on like not doing it, then we save people from shooting themselves in the foot, and we don't have to solve a hard problem. So yay, 2 wins. Anything else, Doug, you think I should talk about?
Those are all my favorite parts.
About emojis.
Talk about emojis. I'm not sure if I can do emojis. Does anyone know how to enter an emoji? Let's see if my site explodes.
Death by emoji.
How do I type one? Nobody knows. Well,
no hipsters in this room.
I probably have to like copy paste it from somewhere.
Yeah, I have to Google it and copy and paste it.
Yeah. Well, in theory, if I knew how to enter an emoji in here, I could like type an emoji and I could save it, and my site would not explode because Backdrop has emoji support. Just like Drupal 7 introduced this solution, I guess, in 7.50, where you had the option to go ahead and update your Drupal 7 site to use emojis. Backdrop just assumes that if the database can support it, it will. And if the database can't, it gives you, or if you've already created it in the old format, it'll give you a walkthrough of like, okay, now you need to update your database tables. Go run update.php, and it'll go through and like fix it for you. So it's like a little, I don't know, makes it a little less complicated than Drupal 7 made it for emoji support.
You want to mention security-only patches, automated releases? Sure.
So one of the things that we heard from the community earlier this summer is that, that one of Backdrop's goals is to decrease the long-term cost of website ownership. And one of the things that people were expressing as a pain point in the Drupal world is that it's really hard to keep everything up to date all the time, right? Like if you had to apply every module update and every core update that ever came out, that would become a very expensive maintenance track for your site. And so most people skip updates that aren't security updates. Sometimes they skip updates that are security updates after checking that they're not relevant to their site. Sometimes they skip all updates altogether, which is definitely not recommended because it's too hard to stay on top of all of changes, and especially made changes to core, and you're really worried that updating core is going to break the customizations that you've made for your particular site. Sometimes that gets super tricky, and you end up with a whole bunch of people who aren't running the latest secure version of software. And so we brainstormed a little bit about how we could solve this problem in Backdrop. And one of the things that was suggested is that if we were able to create not only a new entire copy of Backdrop that's secure, but also like a patch fix release. So if you're running Backdrop 1.4 and there's a security vulnerability in 1.4 and you do not want to upgrade to 1.5, we can give you a patch that you can apply to 1.4 that'll fix the security hole. And that's something that Drupal hasn't done, I think in part because when you have a single patch file that only fixes the vulnerability, it makes it very obvious exactly what that vulnerability is. But if you put that entire fix into the rest of core, it's kind of more obfuscated in that nobody really knows which line exactly was the dangerous line. But in the world of open source, like if people are interested in figuring out what that is, they can figure out what it is. And especially in terms of the scope of the updates, it's much better to have almost everybody have a secure site than to have almost everybody not have a secure site, in the hopes that the people that do have a secure site have a, secure site that nobody knows exactly what was insecure about. So what we're going to try and do is create patch security fixes for every version of Backdrop going forward. And also we're going to try and generate like a table of all of the versions going backwards as well. So that for Backdrop 1, in the life cycle of Backdrop 1, whatever it is, 1.4.15.1.6, anyone can apply the patch fixes. And then in Backdrop 2, we're also going to be looking at a way to automate those patch fixes. So it's really hard to automate like upgrading your entire system, because that increases a lot of risk for everyone who's doing it. It's definitely something I think we could do, although I'm not sure we'll want to enable it automatically for everyone. But the patch fix is something we could enable automatically for everyone, because it introduces a lot less risk in terms of we're not going to break your entire site. We're only going to break that one line that was a security vulnerability anyway. So it's already broken. So it's fixed now, but maybe not in the way you were expecting. And the amount of risk that's associated with replacing one file that has a vulnerability is much, much, much lower than replacing all of core. So we do kind of have a plan for wanting to make people's sites stay secure without them having to pay developers to keep them secure, or at least pay their developers a lot less to keep them secure. Because I think that's going to help the small and medium-sized businesses, the nonprofits, the people who can't afford a full-time developer are really going to benefit from not having to spend a lot of money on keeping their site up and running. So that's the plan.
Sweet.
I feel like I'm not doing Backdrop very much justice. I'm totally unprepared and I don't know what to show off, but I love this thing. Let's see if I can just show off a couple of things.
You said you had a work lined up and you've been busy this year with Backdrop. What kinds of clients are really leveraging Backdrop right now?
So for the fall, I have like 5 Backdrop projects lined up. 4 of them are upgrades from Drupal 6, where people are starting to feel a little bit nervous about running their Drupal 6 sites. And Drupal 6, the kind of target audience for my Drupal 6 site is exactly in line with the target audience for Backdrop sites. Like I don't have any enterprise sites I'm managing on Drupal 6. Like they for sure have all moved to 7 or 8 by now. But I have a lot of little people that are like, didn't really see the value in upgrading to 7 and skipped it, right? And now that 6 is end of life, they're like, my website needs some attention. And I'm like, don't worry, I got you covered. We're going to take you to Backdrop instead. And I'm hoping it'll be a much easier upgrade path, because the upgrade path from 6 to 7 has been done for so long now. Like all of the kinks are kind of ironed out of that process. And the upgrade path from 7 to Backdrop is so minimal, because they're so similar, that there isn't a lot to actually be done there too. So I've got a site, actually the one I'm working on right now, that Doug interrupted me about an hour ago and was like, it's a Drupal 6 upgrade project. And I'm porting a couple of modules that didn't exist yet for Backdrop, but it's still, like, even in doing these last few module ports, it's still going to be a huge cost savings for them over moving to Drupal 8 or a different platform. Even that, this is a site that could have happened on WordPress, but he doesn't need to pay for a new theme. He doesn't need to reimagine his content architecture. So it's going to work out great for him. Another site I'm working on is one of the bigger ones, one of my first ones that I moved to Backdrop. I can't even be showing these off. This is bootfitters.com. I forgot I was sharing, so sorry, that was really boring everyone. He's one of the first Backdrops we built. I think it was like Backdrop 1.2 maybe when we launched the site. It'll come in a minute. My internet is struggling a little. But he's got some really exciting plans in the works where we're going to add geo-targeting, so that depending on where his users are, it'll be able to show the users the shops that are closest to their current location. So this whole business is about the Ski Bum crew has like a bunch of crazy experts that come and test all of their products every year, and then they write all these reviews, and then people who need new ski boots every year read all the reviews and watch videos, and then they want to go buy the thing. And so this website is basically like the canonical source of information on ski boots. And so if you're really excited about the upcoming ski season, you need to know where to go buy your gear. And this site, it's a great example of like complex relational data. Like every ski boot has a manufacturer, and every manufacturer has like a store where you can buy their products. And then the stores all need to be targeted to a certain area. And then there's just a whole bunch of stuff that's all interrelated, which is something that like WordPress isn't very good at. It's something that Drupal is very good at. He was on Drupal before we moved to Backdrop because he's also really into like the latest and greatest, and couldn't really afford to go to 8. So when he was looking at, and I think he came from 6 as well. When he was looking at what to do, it's like, should I go to 7? Should I go to 8? Should I go to Backdrop? He decided to go to Backdrop, and he has been so thrilled with it. He actually built a WordPress site like a couple of weeks ago, and he emailed me afterwards and was like, I was so disgusted with myself. I couldn't believe how slow it was, and all these add-ons are clunky and they don't work right. And I'm just like, wow, I've never heard anyone say so many bad things about WordPress before. Usually everyone loves it. So I think that's good too, that just the fact that when you have a complicated use case, you know, there are limitations to what WordPress can do, and the fact that we're kind of able to do what Drupal can do with those complicated use cases, but hopefully make it faster to do it. We've got more modules in core. We've got kind of a better eye towards user experience, or at least maybe a faster moving team. There's a lot of great eyes in the Drupal community. But yeah, it's coming along. So I've got a bunch of stuff I'm doing for this site too. I've got a couple of Drupal 7 projects that are going to be slowly moving to Backdrop, and a couple of brand new. I've got like an e-commerce site I'm working on. It's like a social good donation platform type thing. And those people are, again, super budget conscious, where they're like, we don't have a lot of money to spend, but we think we can do a lot of good. What's the tool for that? Yeah, I don't know. I've got a couple of the people who have Backdrop sites coming to the Badcamp Backdrop Summit to do little case studies on their site, why they chose Backdrop, what they think they're getting out of it. I'm sure be much better at speaking to how it's solving their specific problems than I am, because I'm like, I get to play with my toy, which makes me happy, but I don't necessarily understand their business case. But yeah, does that answer the questions?
Definitely.
Okay.
Actually, somebody's filling up this other Skype chat we have going on with a couple questions. jQuery,
Okay.
I haven't needed jQuery update yet. Surely that's available.
Yeah, no, we don't need it in Backdrop because jQuery is up to date. Backdrop 1.5 released last week. We threw in the latest version of jQuery with Backdrop 1.5. So there's no reason for updating your jQuery because your jQuery is already up to date.
And the newest versions of jQuery are not providing issues or presenting issues with Backdrop code that was written back in 1.0.
We do some pretty extensive testing. We know what's changing in the versions of jQuery, and we know what's in use in Backdrop, and we are trying to kind of leverage some of the cool new stuff that's going in.
Yeah.
But yeah, we update it and we check that we're not breaking anything in the process.
And I needed Field Group a few months ago and couldn't get it yet.
Yeah, so we do have, oh man, I just had this open today. Let's see if I still have it open.
Not the Form Elements API.
So we went through the list of like top modules that are needed. This is I don't know, probably a month out of date, but this was the top however many modules I could get off of Drupal.org. The ones here with the blue checkboxes are included in Backdrop Core, and the ones with the green checkboxes have contrib modules. The ones with the little cogwheels means they're like underway. So I'm working on meta tag today. Libraries API. This is something I don't think we're going to need in Backdrop because we needed it in Drupal because we couldn't include the libraries themselves. In Backdrop, we can include the libraries themselves. We're on GitHub. We don't have the same limitations as Drupal did. But there are some utility functions in Libraries API that we're going to want to put into Backdrop Core. So that's why this is not marked as finished or not needed or anything. Because we just don't have enough modules that have use cases that have needed those to have them fully tested. But that's coming. XML sitemap is also underway. And then media, this might be going into Backdrop 1.6. We're going to talk about it on Thursday this week and see what the team thinks if we can try and do media and entity reference in the same release, but those are both going into core. And then the next one, as you mentioned, Doug, is field group. And this is something that it's the same thing where I've needed it on like 3 or 4 of the projects I've done lately, but every time I'm like, okay, so here are these modules that are like necessary for your requirements, and then here's this one that improves your user interface. It's always the one that gets cut, where they're like, oh, we don't really need field group. And I'm like, poor field group. It's like, it's so useful. But what I'm expecting is that we'll get a Porta field group probably in the next month or 2. And then depending on its usage statistics, like it might become the most popular contrib module, which would then make it a candidate for core, and it would be in core in one of the next releases. So, I mean, most of this is most popular up here to least popular in this list. And like of the ones that are in there, that seems like it, I don't know, it's going to be at the top of that list.
Okay. Panels instead of panels, like in the case of mini panels. What's your application for that?
Yeah, so right now, I don't have a recommended solution. What I do is clone a layout, even though it's, got like, it'll have a whole bunch of separate blocks, and then I modify that. We have been talking about creating a mini layouts module, because all it does is collect configuration files from like 3 things and bundle them together. There's no reason we couldn't have like a block type defined as a layout, and the layout, just a layout and its configurations, and then it's a layout and a layout. It's like a rabbit hole, right? Or Inception, or those modules.
The word recursive goes in there somewhere, I think.
Right. The recurse blocks module. It's definitely something that would be super easy to create, although I'm not sure anyone's worked on it yet.
Yeah, because an application, a situation I had was I needed to have like maybe a mini panel instead of a panel, and then render it in the style of tabs, and that got tricky.
Yeah. We don't have quite as a robust architecture for displaying things as panels did, but I think that we have a better setup for building things and for storing things. So there's definitely room for improvement in all of this, and in Backdrop in general. What we try and do is put like a minimum viable product in core as soon as we can, and then we iterate. And so something with layouts, like it went in the first version of Backdrop, and then we like did a user experience improvement, and then we did like a theme update improvement, and now we're adding features like the last version of Backdrop has, I should have shown this off. Let's go to the home page. Like we added a new hero block. So like if you want that thing that says welcome to Backdrop local on my homepage, it lets you provide like a background image that you can put across your entire site. Let's use a kitten.
Oh.
Oh man, it's not big enough to be a hero image. I need a bigger kitten. But here I have. I've obviously been testing this recently. This one I installed on WordPress. So heroes are new blocks we added. We also added what I call node block, the existing content block. This is something that existed in panels but didn't exist in Backdrop until now. So like if you have a node, like the About Us node, you can drop that in your content area as well. Like it's super easy now that we have like a minimum viable product of the actual layout. It's super easy to add stuff to it. So there's no reason we couldn't add like a mini layout or styles plugin or all of that stuff that exists in panels at any time in the future. We just wanted there not to be any API change for people who are currently using Backdrop. So that means get the feature in with the API and then add all of the bells and whistles for the people who are using it. So we'll see. I'm hoping that if we make it like easy enough for developers, all of this stuff will start just like appearing out of thin air. So that's kind of the goal. Right now it's like pretty good for end users. It's like a step above Drupal, but it's still not really where I want it to be. Like I want it to be like a WordPress. But I think that if we make it easy enough for developers to kind of get their teeth in it, then they'll come.
This is a reverse field of dreams. They will come and they will build it.
Exactly. Well, first, yeah.
You can use that one. You can have that.
Okay, I'll use that one.
No credits. It's GPL. David Ambrose had a fantastic question. Quote, let's say I can choose from WordPress, Backdrop, and Drupal 7. What factors would compel me to choose one over the other?
Okay, so that's an excellent question. So for me, it's hard to sell a Drupal 7 site today just because it's old. And Drupal 8's out. So it's really hard to go to a client and say, I'm going to sell you like the last version of the software instead of the current version. And so for me, it's more about like, if I have to make that decision today and I have to sell it to a client, it's going to be between WordPress and Backdrop. Drupal 8, I think, is kind of after a different target audience, but there are a lot of simple Drupal sites that you could do on Drupal 8 as well. So that might be Backdrop Drupal 8 and WordPress, not Backdrop Drupal 7 and WordPress. But for me, I like Backdrop. So my sales point between Backdrop and WordPress is usually like, WordPress is really good if you have blog-like content. If you don't have a lot of fields and there aren't a lot of interrelationships between your content, like you don't have books that have authors and authors that have like influencing people, and like those influencing people have books. Like there's a whole bunch of scenarios in Drupal that has this rich, robust, field-related, intertangled content. And Drupal is really great at building you like dynamic lists of show me all of the people that were influenced by this person, or show me all of the people that were influenced by anyone. Or when you need those dynamic relationships, like in views and in panels, stuff that Drupal's really good at. Backdrop is also really good at that stuff just because it's the same. I think it's even going to be a little better from the user interface standpoint, especially around anything you had to do with a panel or context module before, because we've kind of solved that problem from the ground up. It's no longer like an add-on that has to manipulate like block regions. But WordPress is still going to be better. Like if you just have a very simple brochure or website that doesn't have anything interrelated, there's a couple of significant places where WordPress can be better. Theme market, right? Like if you're not doing a custom theme, you're buying one, you can buy so many beautiful themes from WordPress for like $15, right? That you just can't get that in Drupal. You can't get that in Backdrop. What I've been doing for a bunch of my clients is showing them like WordPress theme, buying the HTML version, and then turning them into Backdrop themes, in part because WordPress themes are beautiful, but also I want Backdrop to have that same kind of theme world. So if I can get like a client to help create that, that's good for everyone. But it is worked in order to get you from the $15 theme to the Backdrop theme, and it's not work to get you from the $15 WordPress theme to the WordPress theme. So that's definitely something worth considering. And also thinking about your users, like who is actually going to be managing the content on your website. Had this interesting experience lately where I sold this Backdrop site to this client who was so happy to have it, but then they didn't actually want to manage their own website. And I'm like, I built you a content management system so you can manage your content. And they're like, we don't want to manage the content. I'm like, what? This is crazy. And I think that's also really important too, to have those roles defined, because in WordPress, there's kind of a very different model where it assumes there's one person who's going to be responsible for the website. And when you start adding different types of people with different levels of responsibility, the whole system gets a little clunky. There are add-ons that'll do that, but it's not what it was meant for. So it's not very good at it. In Backdrop, in Drupal, like it's meant to have more than one level of admin, right? Like user one, your root user, has all permissions. And that is not supposed to be the user that's interacting with the site on a daily basis, unlike WordPress, where that is the user that's supposed to be interacting with the site on a daily basis. So with Drupal, it's like you've got people who create your content, you've got people who edit your content, you might have people who approve your content, maybe you have different levels of administrators. You have like a lowly, like all I can do is configure things administrator, and then you have like a super high level, like almost developer, like I build stuff all the time kind of administrator. And the permissions are so granular, they allow for all of that stuff. So depending on what your needs are for your client site, like you can think about, I don't have any needs around permissions, like my person's only going to be creating content. That could be a great case for like WordPress. Or you have one person who's going to be doing everything. That's also a great case for WordPress. But when you start having different people have different responsibilities, something like Drupal or Backdrop is going to be much better, because you're not going to be trying to kludge on a user management system that wasn't intended to be used onto the system itself. So that's kind of how I like thinking about it. Also, specifically when you're comparing like Drupal 7 versus Backdrop, which I know a lot of people are still doing Drupal 7 sites today, it's about like, how soon do they need it? Because in Backdrop, like you mentioned, Doug, like field group module isn't there yet. I'm working on meta tags today. There are still pieces missing. And so if you do like an analysis of what they need, and it's fairly straightforward, and you look at all of the parts and you're like, everything is done in Drupal today. Maybe we need to port a module or two to Backdrop. Like, what's the timeline on that? And if your client's timeline is like, I needed it yesterday, then they're going to be better off with the Drupal 7 site, because a year from now, those pieces are going to exist for Backdrop, and the upgrade path from 7 to Backdrop is going to be a piece of cake. So there's no reason to necessarily rush them unless they're okay with the timeline, like they've got the budget, you really want to do it. Like, maybe you love Backdrop and you can be like, please let me do this. I love Backdrop. I've got clients like that too, where they're like, okay, we trust you, do what you want. Right. So, developers often get a lot more weight in this decision-making process just because clients trust them. Right. So if you really want to do it and your client trusts you and you say, trust me, I want to do it this way. It's going to be fun. It's going to be better for you. We won't have to upgrade in a year. And they go, okay, we'll wait a month. And then you can get your modules. That's a way to go about it too.
Sweet. And speaking of loving Backdrop, the logo is so awesome. The dragon is totally cool. If anybody on the conference is really hoping to have a shirt or a sweatshirt of limited size, how would they go about getting such a thing?
So we do have our logo is a big square and it's boring, but we have a mascot, which is he is adorable. And if you love dragons or you have kids that love dragons, we are giving away t-shirts or hoodies at backdropcms.org/contribute. Not quite fast enough to talk and type at the same time and type correctly. But on the contribute page, we do have some limited sizes right now. We are placing another order of t-shirts and hoodies that should be done by Badcamp, so October 20th-ish. So if we don't have your size, if you can wait until October 20th, we will have a bunch more. But if you make a donation to the Backdrop Foundation for $25, you will get a thank you t-shirt in the size of your choosing. And same thing for a hoodie. If you want to make a donation of $50, we have a thank you hoodie in the size of your choosing. You can also buy these in person at Badcamp. If you're going to be there, you can try them on and check out your size. The t-shirts are normal, as you would expect. The hoodies are slim fit, so most people usually end up going with the size larger. I think that I like the slim fit because they have like nice thin wrists, but it does also affect how snugly the hoodie goes over your beer belly. So, there are lots of people who prefer a size up. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, also if you are a contributor to the Backdrop project, we will send out t-shirts without the donation. So we're basically accepting donations in the format of code in addition to the format of dollars. So if you want to port a module, that would get you a thank you t-shirt in addition.
Love it. Any more questions from the gang? Skype has died down. The chat has died down on Zoom.
That's awesome. It's really exciting to see. And I think I asked Doug, and Doug, I'm not sure if he answered my question about migrating from Drupal 6 to Backdrop.
Yeah, I gave her a link to the book, so maybe Jen has a better answer.
Yeah, so let me see if I can turn off. It's dark in here now. Let me see if I can turn off my screen share. Hold on. Stop sharing. Okay, so there are 2 books available for Backdrop. One of them is called Migrating to Drupal. I'm not sure if you guys have actually seen this book. Look how skinny it is. Whoa. So it's actually not very hard to migrate, especially if you're migrating from Drupal 7. There's a built-in upgrade path that's super easy. There's also another book, Beginning Backdrop. It's a little fatter, not quite as big as Beginning Drupal, but pretty close. That is a good resource as well. Migrating from 6 to Backdrop is a little tougher than migrating from 7 to Backdrop because you have to you have to upgrade from 6 to 7 first. And so the hard part is getting from 6 to 7. There's definitely, like, depending on what modules you're using, some of them don't have Drupal 7 versions. So there's a little bit of a like, oh, I was using video module in Drupal 6. I need to move to video field in Drupal 7 first before I can move from 7 to Backdrop, stuff like that. But once you can get on 7, the process from 7 to Backdrop is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
How do you do e-commerce in Backdrop?
Well, That's a loaded question. So e-commerce, it depends on what you mean by e-commerce, right? It's like, how do you build a website? Well, what do you mean by website? So there's lots of different ways to do it. I am working on an e-commerce site right now that's going to be using the basic cart module and Stripe integration. So those are two pieces that I used to use on several Drupal sites too. There's also like a web form Stripe module that's going to have integration. I'm working on that for a different project. There is, like, if you're looking for like a commerce-like solution, Ryan Sarama, the creator of Drupal Commerce, is working on a solution for Backdrop called Backshop, but it is not ready. So the e-commerce projects I'm taking on short-term are much smaller in scope than something that would be something like a Drupal Commerce.
Okay. Cool.
How hard is it to port a D7 to Backdrop module?
It's not very hard, but it does depend on the module, right? So there are some modules that all you have to do is change one line in the info file, like any module that provides a field type for Drupal 7. You can just change the info file and it'll just work. There are some differences between having a module that will like just work and having a module that's good for Backdrop, because Backdrop makes use of CMI. And so if you want to take advantage of this ability to be able to export and import your configuration files, you've got to get them out of the database and into configuration files, which means you can't be using the functions variable set and variable get, which most of these modules rely really heavily on. So there's a lot of like find and replace in order to get variable set to turn into like config set and variable get to be config get and all of that. So I like to say it's a couple of hours to port a module. If it's on average, there are some modules that are like 5 minutes. As I said, there are some modules that are going to be like a week. I think web form took maybe 2 or 3 weeks. But compare that to like how long it takes to port a module, even from 6 to 7. I think it should be much faster. And there are a couple of videos too, if you're curious about porting modules. There's a video online of Nate porting the external links module, which he did pretty quickly. In training a couple of times I ported the table field module once, I ported the YouTube field module. Like all of these field modules are great to do like live, because it's like you can show off, here's the config changes that need to happen. Here's the way that you're, the new hooks that Backdrop has that Drupal didn't have. External links is great because it also has JavaScript that needs to be changed. So there's a bunch of great online resources that step you through all of it. Let me actually share one more thing. I can post this into the meeting. There's a great documentation on all of the things that you need to change. I think it's an API. And so you can go through any contrib module you're looking at and see if it has any of these things that need to be changed, and you can change them. Here it is. So it's converting modules to Backdrop from Drupal 7. I'm going to paste the link into the Zoom chat. And it's a pretty good, yeah, there's a good link there to a Lullabot article on the same thing. It's not bad. The goal is to make it quick and painless.
How about when modules are updated for Drupal 7? Do they automatically get updated to Backdrop, or does Backdrop update modules on its own, and then how does it go back and forth?
So there has so far been a lot of collaboration between Drupal and Backdrop, but when a Drupal version of a module gets updated, those changes are not automatically included into the Backdrop version. And it is up to the individual maintainers of the Backdrop modules to pull in or not pull in those changes as they see fit. And there's definitely like a lot of things that are a little different for Backdrop, like depending on how complicated the module is. The module might be simplified for Backdrop. Like there are use cases that we're not specifically trying to target. There might be user interfaces we're trying to clean up. And I have been pretty good about like anytime I'm significantly altering the user interface on like a Backdrop module, I'll create an issue against the Drupal module and be like, hey, I'm trying to improve this user interface. But then it's also up to the Drupal maintainer to decide if they want to take the changes we're making. So it's definitely true that every one of these modules is working, right? Like as soon as there's a Backdrop version, there's now 2 different versions of the module. But most of the modules that we're looking at right now have like there's already kind of that dichotomy happening between their Drupal 6 branch and their Drupal 7 branch and their Drupal 8 branch, and some of the changes that are getting into one aren't getting into the other there either. So I think it's having like 3 people working on the same code base means that we can kind of pick and choose the features and interface improvements we like from whichever one we want. So it's up to every maintainer to figure out how they want to maintain their project. Sometimes they're exactly the same, which is easy. Sometimes they're super different, which is really hard. Sometimes there's different branches. Like I'm working on a new branch of the Flex Slider module. But yeah, I don't know. Like long term, there is going to be a lot of picking and choosing. We can't talk about Drupal core though, because every time there's a new version of Drupal core that comes out, we go through all of the commits that were made to core and try and get as many of those changes as possible that are relevant into Backdrop. And so any contrib maintainer that wanted to follow that same philosophy could do the same thing. And they could watch all of the releases of the Drupal contrib module and pull those in as needed too.
Okay. Are there any plans, and maybe you've already mentioned this, to do module updates similar to the way WordPress does plugin updates directly from the admin area, like update, and then it just updates right there?
Oh, that's already in Backdrop core. Let me show you that.
Okay.
We got it. Okay. Where's my site? Oh, I need to be sharing. Hold on, let me share the screen. Screen share. Screen share. Okay. So on the modules page, this is something that's built into Drupal 7 as well. We just included an additional module that was called Project Browser. It's now called Installer module on Backdrop. But from the modules page, you can do something like install a new module. Here's Backup and Migrate. I'm going to add that to my site. I'm going to click the install button. It'll give me a, hey, you're about to install, and then I can click go. And then it'll copy the files from GitHub onto my local site. And then it'll turn on the module, which is what it's doing now. And then when it's done, it'll also give me the option to update anything directly from that interface, which I'll show you. So there we go. Turn on. I think, unfortunately, this is like almost a fresh checkout, so there won't be anything to update, but I can only show you the page. Okay, so there's this other tab here called Update Modules. So it'll check all the modules I have installed, which is now like Devel and Migrate. There's nothing there. Oh, hey. Wait a minute. I don't want to do that. Okay, so I'm running a dev version, and it's like, we recommend you downgrade, actually. I'm not going to do that. But it will give you a list here of like updates that are required, and there's a user interface to handle that here. So we did get that part. I'm not sure what it looks like in WordPress. I'm going to stop the screen sharing again. I'm not sure what the upgrade process looks like in WordPress, but we did want to make sure we had a user interface for that in Backdrop.
Update question. When I updated from 1.4.4 to 1.5, for a couple page refreshers, I had a undefined index footer and some TPL file, and then it went away. Did I do anything wrong?
No. So that error actually existed before 1.5. We probably just weren't showing it to you until you were in that intermediary status where you could see it. I don't know. But we did fix that in 1.5. We removed the source of that error. So hopefully that error was generated in 1.4, and then after you ran update.php, it stopped getting generated. But you were seeing the messages from before.
I haven't seen it since, yeah.
Yeah, so that was the maintenance page template that was in 7. Used to have a footer region. We don't have any regions in themes. So we pulled it out in...
Of course. Okay. That would be an eternally undefined index.
Yeah, undefined index is one of the least terrifying error messages you can get on your site. So if you see those, it means there's some messy code somewhere, but it doesn't usually mean things are going to explode, especially if it's something...
Yeah.
You know,
I know what you do whenever you see an undefined index error.
I fix them.
No, you tweet out. Your mom's an undefined index.
Oh, well, it depends on how hysterical the undefined index is.
Yeah.
I do often.
You must come across quite a few hysterical things.
Oh, yeah. I get some great error messages. So does my mom.
Apparently she does.
One last question, and I think we're at the end. all the mentioning about PHP was making me wonder, is the PHP module so that you can use PHP, is that available or not? I know
We
that
removed-
7
we
does
removed that
not
before.
want
Yeah. No, you can't have it.
it. Okay.
You took out the please hack me module.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
The hack myself module is gone.
Please hack me. I flubbed on a question somebody asked me just last week. PHP 7 and Backdrop? I said yes.
Yep. Works
I
great.
thought so. Yeah.
Yeah, we got that in pretty much the week PHP 7 was released. We looked at what was required in making it work. We looked at the outstanding issues for Drupal 7, and we knocked them all out, and they came out in the release. So it works great. I've got a couple sites running on it now. It's nice and fast. It's
Yeah.
good.
Did anybody benchmark it?
There might be, I think there's a blog post somewhere that has benchmarks that include PHP. Yeah. If you go to backdropcms.org/news, that's our blog feed, you can see a couple of write-ups there that we did with benchmarks.
Backdrop versus Drupal 7 benchmark on PHP 5.5, 5.6, and 7.0. Oh, I've seen this before too. It was May of this year. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I can't keep it all straight. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jen. That was awesome. You thought you couldn't find anything to fill, but an hour and 5 minutes later, we're talking about your mom's undefined index.
What to talk about? Oh, I'll just talk about that. Well, thanks for being good listeners and good questions. And if you get more questions, you can find anyone related to Backdrop in Gitter, which is it's like an IRC client, but it's public. It's tied to your, so you don't have to install any software. It's just right in the browser. You go to gitter.im/backdrop. The channel that we talk most in is Backdrop-issues. That's where most of the people are. But you can definitely ask questions there. You can use Twitter. We're at Backdrop CMS on Twitter. There we go. Jeff just posted a link to our Gitter channel in the chat here. And yeah, you can send an email to info@backdropcms.org. Or yeah, post an issue in our issue queue. That's a good way to get eyes on anything you find there. There's a tag there for type of question until we get our forum going. Sorry, it's attacked by a cat.
Thanks again, Jen. That was awesome. Thank you so very much.
Hey, kitty.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh.
Have to
Thanks, Jen.
joining us.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jen. I'll see you at band camp.
Appreciate
We'll
it.
see you at Bat Camp.
Thank you, Mayor.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.